Hi Legend, how's it going? It's been quite a while. Today I'd like to share a topic which is, I believe, very important for TDD if you want to do that successfully. I have recently delivered a talk, the same topic, internally. So I think it's worthwhile to share it to the public, and hopefully you can apply this technique in your day-to-day TDD sessions. Today we're going to talk about tasking, which is essentially a technique to break it down a big subject into smaller pieces, and then that will act as the input of your TDD loops. So let's get started. Test-driven development should be already a quite familiar topic in this channel. So I will just quickly walk through it. So basically, you write your test and the seed field. That's the red stage, and then you make the minimum effort to make the test pass. That means it will be a simplest solution at that point, and make the test green again. And then you do refactoring. So sometimes you might skip the refactoring because the implementation is so simple. It's just a fake string kind of thing. So you can skip that and then jump into the next red-green refactoring loop. So this is a typical TDD red-green loop. So that's nothing wrong with this loop, but if you want to implement TDD, especially when you started the TDD, you haven't already done that in your the code base, you might find a hard time to apply this simple loop, because that's only the part of the big picture. There's something missing here, which is the topic we are going to discuss today, the tasking. So what is tasking? You might have already done that in your work, but not in TDD, not with TDD. You have been doing that maybe. So essentially, tasking means breaking down things to smaller, manageable chunks. But that's critical because the tasking is the output of tasking, which is a to-do list or a checklist, and that list is the input of your TDD red-green refactor loop. So essentially, without the tasking or tasks you break down, you can't efficiently apply in TDD, if I put it that way. So tasking it's more like a drawing, if I use this metaphor. I found this very interesting. So if you're drawing something like this at the final stage, there will be a realistic eye. But at the very beginning, so if our goal is to draw this realistic eye, the very first step isn't draw the pupil or the eyebrow or the eyelash, a realistic one, but instead we don't draw anything realistic at all at the very beginning. So it will be some simple shapes. You just draw a few lines and make the shape roughly about what you're going to be achieved at the end. So, and then gradually you add a few details, and when you find something wrong, you just erase them, and then you add more details to the pupil, to the eyeball, and then the highlight, the shadow, and gradually they will be more and more realistic. But that's just how you break it down. So it's much easier if you draw these simple shapes as a first step, and then gradually adding more things on top of them. So that's basically the idea of how we break down a feature or a requirement from the product. So for example, if you want to implement a feature, instead of making every component exactly like a pixel perfect to align with the mockup, we will draw some roughly shapes at first. So let's say we want to build a application, a pizza online ordering kind of application. So for this restaurant, they have like 6 items on their menu page, and each item has images. Each item has image, the pizza name, price, and the add button. And a user can add a pizza into a shopping cart, and they can add as much as they like. And then once they decided it's okay, they can place order. That's a very simple and a typical scenario. So let's say we want to implement this as a feature. So what would you do at first if you want to do TDD? So let's say how we can break it down into manageable pieces and deliver them one by one. So the first task could be we only verify the heading is showing up correctly. That's kind of a branding thing. You have a logo, you have a headline, or the page title. This is a good way to verify that works. So as long as you can have this title shows up on your page, that means the page is working or like functional at least. It's not breaking or it's not throwing any exceptions, which is what we are expecting. So this is the this could be a very solid first step. And next step, we can verify that an empty list is rendered. Let's say we have 6 items, empty items on the page, and then we may want to verify that the menu has the item has a name in it. That is a very simple step as well, but it has its value. So if you today goes into a restaurant, let's say they don't have only online platform, the first thing you look at the menu is item names. So this is perfectly fine in terms of business value. And the next thing could be we can add a price to each item, and then gradually we will add a button to them, and then we have a empty shopping cart component or thing there. And at the beginning the button is disabled, you cannot proceed. You can only use this as a reference or paper menu and do the orders. And we can then the next task breaking down could be we can add 1 item to the shopping cart, and then you can add more, and then there will be a total number there, and then you can place your order. And eventually you will have this beautiful, realistic, online ordering system. This is basically the steps we are following to implement the whole application. Empty list, item with name, with price, with button, and then a shopping cart, and then adding more details to make it more realistic, just like we are drawing the realistic eyes. So another way to break it down is we still need a headline, or like the simplest one, to make sure the application is working. It's not broken. It's not a black page basically. And the next thing is we implement the pizza component, which has name, price, and add button. Which the add button, when you click it, it doesn't do anything particularly at this stage. And then we have a empty or one state of the shopping cart, which is a disabled state. And when we can then gradually build up this shopping cart component, we make it has the it can show the pizza name and the price. And then we add another pizza item on the page, and then we keep adding these shopping cart to make it more realistic. It has more details. You can add items to it. It will have a total number, and if you add multiple items, it will have this the indicator here, and the total price will reflect based on your selection. And you can keep adding more functions to this shopping cart, maybe remove the item, or adding the image or things like that to the shopping cart component. and then you add more items to the menu. At the end, you will have these, like adding more images, and then make it real and perfectly aligned with the mockup. So this is another way you can break it down. There is no right or wrong breaking roles, but the point here is you should always think how you can break down a big requirement into smaller tasks, and each step or each task is built on top of the previous one, which is the simpler version, and you gradually build up this application. Maybe there are other ways to break down this whole application into smaller chunks. And once you have these tasks in your list, this can be the input of your actual test. By saying that, I mean, let's say we have like 8 tasks. We can have a test in a code base, like verifying given the application user is landed to the page and they can see this heading line. And next one is user can see 6 empty list items. And next one is another test. And then they can verify if each item has a correct name on it. Similarly, the other approach is we are building up the pizza component first. So there is a pizza component. We are verifying pizza item should have a name, should have the price. When a button is clicked, a mock function is being called. And then at a later stage, we will do the integration. So for example, if we use the first approach, let's say we have a test with a render application header. So the code often should be in the document, and the second one we can verify. Okay, the screen should have a list item and to have links some number. So then we would like to say, okay, we have a list of items. We want to verify if the first one is margherita pizza, then the second one is pepperoni. Things like that. We probably have 6 or 8 test cases for these tasks, and then we gradually verify the price and so on. So this is the first type of breakdown. Another breakdown would be we start from the individual component. Let's say we have a pizza component, and then we pass in the properties, and then we are verifying if the margherita pizza is on the page, if the price is on the page, if the button is there, and when we click the button, what will happen, things like that. And we probably will have another test about the shopping cart, and then we have the application test. So there are 2 different ways of breaking them down. So in other words, when we're doing test-driven development, we always start to look into the requirement and break it down into a list of actionable tasks, and then convert each task into a test. And then we write the first test and make it pass and refactor. And when we write the next one, we have a clear to-do item from the list, and we pick them up and write a test, and then doing the loop. So this will easily force us to stay focused, and once we have finished all the tasks, we know that we are done. So yeah, basically that's what tasking about. If you want to get more information, subscribe to the channel. I will share this regularly. And recently I have published a book about my second edition of this book with React and TypeScript. The second edition is just recently published. It has some concrete examples in it as well, like how do you do tasking, how do you do the tests with React, and what's the normal refactoring techniques. Give it a try if you haven't yet. So the advantage of this approach is, firstly, it will fix the problem solving, It's only tackle one issue at a time, which is how our brain works as well. Like you can't work in multiple things at one time. And when you have a list of items, it's always very clear what the next step is, which is important for us to reduce the mind load. And you always, because you are using TDD, you always write the simplest test. You don't do the any addition or extra things, and it's very good at. So this approach helps on to enter a productive coding state. You don't be distracted because you have a clear kind of things need to be done, and each one has a very clear definition of done. That is critical. And because you write test always before you write the production code, so you always have the best coverage. So yeah, if you want to give it a try, I have a GitHub repo here. You can try to break it down and write your tasking, have a list of items, and then you count them to test, give it a try. You don't have to be exactly like what I break it down, but the point here is try to make it gradually or incremental. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have for today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in next time. Bye bye.